So this is something called HEGO. And what I should point out, just again, it's kind of a caveat, is that something like this dot here, that's actually meaningful. All you can measure with a human being, and again, I can go over this afterwards if you want, is basically their rough position. Picture I'm in a bubble. You can figure out I'm here with the big kind of uncertainty around me. But what that means is that we're never going to be able to get like a reach for somebody's arm from something like StatCast. That's a problem that DARPA will solve in 20 years. That is not a problem that Major League Baseball will solve in 3. It is very complicated. And the other thing is that as we look at some of the information here, in the same way I talked about the spin rate or the axes for the TrackMan data, all of this is basically just points in space and time. You're never going to be able to do analysis with it. It's going to be proprietary. And I don't blame them. Oh, they'll give you the final numbers. They will give you their ultimate calculation. They're not going to give you the info so you can make your own calculation. I mean, you understand what I mean by the difference. It's like they're showing you this spin rate and the perceived velocity, but they're not giving you the information so you can calculate your own perceived velocity, which is fine. You know, and again, of course, I'm also looking to work with the team right now, so I want it to be proprietary because I have a lot of my own ideas, which I'm not going to talk about for obvious reasons. So this is it's going to be this is basically a simulation of what the StatCast data is going to show you, or should be. And it is a simulation. In physics, we call this a toy problem. By the way, there are 12 people on the field here. You'll notice that they left out both the corner infields and the corner outfielders, so there's only 5 fielders. Although they did include all 4 umpires, which I thought was kind of interesting. And one thing, you'll notice there's a bounce in the outfield right here. That's actually real. StatCast can track the bounce. It's kind of new stuff. I thought that was very cool. We'll see more of that later. One of the things to realize, by the way, is when I say that this is a simulation, or again, the term I used to use was toy problem, everybody is either moving in a straight line or in some kind of really easily predictable curve. What you can't see, though, is that we've got, even leaving out players, we've got like 12 people on the field plus the ball. So now we're getting beyond that 2D information to 2D plus time times 12, and how all of those interact. You see where it's getting more and more complex, and where if you're used to doing the statistics and the sabermetrics, you're going to start tearing your hair out. I think it's very interesting. We learn to start tearing your hair out. That was the simulation.
Yes.
This is what it actually looks like. By the way, this is done by Darren Willman. Thank you, Darren. Who Scott just mentioned. More Darren stuff's going to show up. This is so new that this particular graph may be less than 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks old. He just started doing this stuff in early January. I'm so glad for the timing. It was 3 times in this talk. Now we've got 16 people on the fence. Because not only have we included all the players, he's actually included the first and third baseman. Suggestion to Darren, by the way, change the background to gray because we can't see half these colors. Notice the problem? Another cool thing also is, you know how I said you can see the bounce? We can actually see the throw. So here's the ball being caught by Kevin Kiermaier, him moving a bit, and him throwing it back to the second baseman. I never thought we'd get to that point. And again, that's just kind of a cool thing to be able to realize that they're able to find the ball, you know, despite the fact that the players move and then he lets go. Yes.
This is StatCast data.
This is StatCast data.
So this is not going to be anywhere to be seen. It's not.
Oh no, this is. I mean, here's the thing though. They can show this because the problem basically, I think this makes it really You notice this is not only how the players move, but this is the entire play. You've got Machado hitting the ball, making it to second base, and then they're bothering to track him all the way back to the dugout. So this is a huge amount of time. We have no idea how fast anyone ran. We have no idea, necessarily like where, how close is the right fielder by the time Kiermaier's got the ball? How long is it taking him to get there? What's happening down in these areas? Mostly, like I said, it just shows you how complicated this is. It's cool. I don't think you can pull anything useful out of this without also having the time. But what it does show you is how incredibly complicated this has the potential to be. And I do point out there it's the potential. But yeah, there's nothing dynamic in it. And that's kind of the key. I should also point out that this is Kevin Kiermaier catching the ball. I don't know if Darren is just really good friends with Kevin or a fan, but you're going to see Kevin Kiermaier's name over and over and over in these examples. It's just what he chose to do. I didn't pick Kevin Kiermaier specifically. Well, no, I mean, there are other career center fielders.
He's showing movement more than anything else. He's showing how far he's ranging to get from given balls. I
just thought it was interesting. There are other career center fielders, but for some reason, Kevin Kiermaier shows me all the examples. So, whatever. One of the things that is, and I guess to go back to it just to make, go back to this. Certainly to get the ball, and I guess for Kevin, this is fairly easy. He's got a route here. Notice he comes forward, and then he goes back, catches the ball. You kind of see that, right? Forward and goes back. So one of the more interesting things you think you could pull out of this would be routes. It also seems like it should be straightforward. Routes are a great example of something that seems like it should be straightforward, but is deceptively complicated. I like this. I could have gotten you movies, but I like this picture because all of the movies show you the spectacular plays. They show you that Yasiel Puig running lights out and making a diving catch. That's not necessarily how someone runs a route. In this case, I'm willing to bet, and I don't even know who the player is. He clearly had trouble tracking the ball. And you can tell that because he's slowing down and speeding up and slowing down. Finally speeds up and is able to catch the ball. So I don't know if it's that it was windy, I don't know if it's that he has trouble running back towards the wall, or he was afraid of hitting the warning track. He doesn't even catch it. But that kind of route, we have how fast he's gone, we have where he's gone, but he's going in a squiggly line, he's changing speed, and that's just one route. Imagine if you wanted to know about how he runs routes in general. And, what about how he runs them in different directions or over different distances? It's easy, you can see where it could get complicated. And again, I'm happy to answer questions or go more into it afterwards, but I've had some discussions with people where we sort of sat down and said, oh, okay, these are a lot of potential problems, and some of them people may have solved, some of them I don't think they have. What you have to realize, though, is that even this single route is giving you a lot of information, both about space and time. And so, yeah, and that's just one route. Like I said, imagine if you wanted to know what's typical of a player. The way that StatCast has chosen to deal with this is to give you a single number. Corey and Schwartz and I have had debates about this. Route efficiency, I'll grant, it's just very hard to give you more than just that. By the way, because of the spectacular place thing, I defy, if anybody can find me a still of route efficiency of someone who's below 95%, that would be great. All this really means is how close they are to a straight line. So essentially, these are people who are, as you can see, running flat out to catch the ball. If you are running flat out to hardest plays are actually the easiest to quantify for routes, which is kind of interesting. The problem with the route efficiency number, kind of like I said, is that it doesn't tell you about direction. It doesn't tell you about speed. It doesn't tell you about how far he ran. So I don't know if those numbers are really comparable exactly. I mean, they tell me a particular thing, but they don't tell me enough to give me if, you know, Pagan is a better fielder than Pence. That number isn't enough. I need more. Yes.
The ball drops in, and your body efficiency may not be good or bad, or is that what you're trying to point out?
Well, all I'm saying is that, like, let's say there's a can of corn that can stick, and it's windy, and so you've got someone who doesn't actually have to move much, but they're moving back and forth a lot, keeping their feet moving. That's very, very different from a straight line. That's going to come up as a terrible route efficiency, even though it's an easy play. And in fact, the easier the play, probably the worse the route efficiency.
So one other question, if you say you got to sacrifice fly,
Sure.
do you take a couple steps back to keep your momentum once you catch the ball? Hit the back of it?
Once it's caught, it doesn't come out. I mean, actually, hang on, good. Let's see if I can get this work. Kiermaier's route efficiency on this is terrible. He goes forward, and then he goes back. This was probably a really easy catch to make, even though it's a line out. But that, forward, and then that, actually kills the route efficiency a lot. So you see what I mean about, you know, and this is just, what I'm showing to a large extent is also just stuff that people, this is what they want to see. Yeah.
You need to accumulate route efficiency for some time. It would have to be at a small cost, right?
Yes, route efficiency implies ball, okay.
Because otherwise, if the guy's just standing there with the ball, that's perfect route efficiency every time.
Oh, yeah. What I would say is, and this is actually a good question, because I'm going to show you something and feel for basically how one of the things we look at is the range of the route. But yeah, in the outfield, it's definitely, as far as I'm concerned, making the catch. In the infield, I would say it's blowing the ball because everything's an assist. So you just don't make a lot of catches in the infield to begin with. You're not going to have a very large sample size. But also, you know, Nolan Arenado probably makes short distances, but he makes amazing routes. So, and again, the distance there coming in.
Can you track catches on pop-ups?
A catcher on a pop-up is probably going to have an atrocious route efficiency. But that's what I mean, you know, and that there are, it only makes sense really in the outfield, and again, this will show up some of the stuff that I showed the Barons, where you've got more, there's more room to maneuver, therefore a route is more meaningful. If you're only traveling, say, 20 or 30 feet, you know, unless it's a really major, you know, line drive or something, it's probably not going to need as much. But, and that's actually, I guess, an important point to make, is that outfield player tracking information versus infield player tracking information, in terms of what's useful, is probably going to be very, very different. By the way, everything I'm throwing out here, were you going to ask me? Let us one of the things to realize is a lot of what I'm showing you here is really just making the point that this is going to be hard. This is already proving hard. And that idea, for instance, of outfield versus infield is another thing. It comes down to asking, knowing what information you want and figuring out how to ask the questions. Yes?
I have a question. Is there any type of technology that could analyze movie or video footage of the past, like how fast did Koufax pitch, or how fast did Kai Cobb actually run? If there's movie or video footage, is there any type of technology that could actually analyze it and put out some numbers?
I'm
Yet?
speculating here because if it does exist, it's proprietary. I do not believe there is. On the other hand, I do believe it's doable, depending on the quality of the actual information. One of the problems you run into, particularly, and I've had this happen, particularly when you're looking at pitching, is that if you only are doing 24 or 30 frames a second, that ball isn't round anymore. It's a blur in every single frame. And if you want to get, you could go through, find your right intern and make it click on every single frame, and that's fine. But if you wanted to find a way to quantitatively have the computer do it, it's very hard to get the computer to identify the blur versus the ball. If I could get the ball, I could absolutely write the software for it, yes. Although even there, you're only getting it from a single angle, which again presents a problem because I mean, think about it. If you're looking straight on, you can't tell how fast the ball's going. You'd have to be looking at from the side, and even then, it's great to see. Yes, there's something that's doable. The key would be to make sure that you put limits on either end. It's going up to this fast, or it's going faster than X, or things like that. So, I've just shown you a lot of really, well, I'm not sure if ugly information. Certainly the Kevin Niermeyer catch is a good example of ugly. So, I guess the question is, what do we do with what we've got? And what I would say actually is you have to start by stepping back. It's kind of a crawl before you walk thing. And once again, this is stuff that Darren Coleman did. Now, this is part of StatCast. I have a feeling that this is not actually about player tracking. This is the kind of stuff you could have gotten from one of those hitting spray charts, except instead of being dependent on the batter, it's dependent on the fielder. I find so this is basically where the ball is being tossed. First of all, I found it remarkable how round into the score. I did not expect it to look symmetric. And again, I'll have a slide that I'll show you in a second that shows you total lack of symmetry. I can't believe the cut that like Crowd has in here. I mean, it's basically uniform. I would love to see how he actually plays the ball, knowing that the results look like this. This is insane. Kevin Kiermaier, once again, all of the red dots are his starting position. All the black dots are where he actually fields the ball. I'm not sure the red or the little lines are important, but what I think is key here is that you're going to see more dots towards the center and fewer as you get further out. I mean, Darren literally just connected the other dots, which is fine. It's not, he actually said, this is a start, this is how I'm doing it. This is effectively telling you something about the player's range. And this would be a quantitative range. I know ranges have all sorts of different definitions over the years. This is hopefully what the real range is. Speaking of range, this is something that I did years ago, I guess, long before StatCast was even talked about, when it was still going to be field effects and had to come online. And this, unlike the other slide, which you could have pulled just from the bat ball data, is actually